Welcome back, everyone. This is your DM Alex coming to you to talk about the history of Kryn in the world of Dragonlance. While every world's history is vast and fractured, with missing pieces and forgotten perspectives, Kryn's tale has been shattered by the global catastrophe called the Cataclysm. The world of Kryn was forged and destroyed, yet, broken and scattered, it continued on. Most of its people, seeking merely to survive in their slowly healing lands, care little for eons past. But the sages who piece together fragments of the past focus on three periods: before the Cataclysm itself, and the dire age since. Kryn's earliest centuries have passed into mytho-history. The story begins in the age of Starbirth, when the gods forged the world from primordial chaos. This period's records are mere legends and scriptures, and few credit their details as fact. Next came the Age of Dreams, a time when heroes battled the forces of evil. Many modern cultures and institutions saw their origins in this era, including the Knights of Solamnia, the Mages of High Sorcery, and the Dwarven Kingdom of Thorbarden. Ironically, these cultures often dismiss one another's foundational stories as baseless myths, while fiercely insisting on the veracity of their own. During a terrible conflict known as the Third Dragon War, the knight, Huma Dragonbane, was granted the first of the fabled Dragonlances. He used it to defeat the evil god Takesis, the Dragon Queen, and end the war, forcing the god and her dragons to leave Kryn. The good dragons of Kryn soon departed as well, leaving the world to mortals and the remaining gods. During the 1,000 years before the Cataclysm, known as the Age of Might, several human nations flourished, conquering vast swaths of the continent of Ansalon in the name of good. But the triumph of the Age of Might sowed the seeds of its downfall. Over the centuries, the city of Istar in eastern Ansalon grew into a continent-spanning empire, thanks in part to a military alliance with the Knights of Solamnia. Istar came to be ruled by a series of king priests who declared Istar the center of the world, and themselves the holy messengers of the gods of good. Under their leadership, Istar declared war on actions, peoples, and even thoughts the king priests considered evil. Increasingly rigid and theocratic, Istar reached its apex of power just before its apocalyptic fall. The last king priests undertook ever more audacious magical feats, culminating in a ritual to attain godhood and rule Kryn forever in the name of good. At last, the gods acted, united in their condemnation of Istar. As a last effort to avoid mass destruction, the gods sent the 13 Warnings, a series of signs meant to deter the king priest. Trees wept blood, fires raged unnaturally, and cyclones struck the gleaming temple of the king priest. The gods also warned a few chosen mortals, reasoning that if any of them reached Istar and prevented the ritual, the world might not be beyond redemption. But the messengers failed. The king priest and his followers dismissed the warnings as the work of evil and continued on their path. As the hour of the king-priest ritual to attain godhood arrived, the gods whisked away their most devout followers and unleashed punishment on all who remained. A mountain of fire fell from the sky, destroying Istar. The Blood Sea, a new ocean that split eastern Ansalon, consumed the empire. Coastlines shifted all over the world, sundering nations, drowning whole regions, and stranding ports miles from the sea. Though some lands escaped the worst of the destruction, none were spared divine wrath. The gods and their blessings then faded from the world, and in time, even their names were all but forgotten. The Cataclysm ushered in a period of chaos. During the next 3 centuries, known as the Time of Darkness, cultures and ecologies were radically altered, causing famine, plague, and mass migrations. The Knights of Solamnia, the champions who might have kept Ansalon united, were distrusted as former allies of Istar and persecuted across the continent, even in their own country. The elven nations shut their borders. The dwarves of Thorbardin withdrew to their deep tunnels, refusing entrance to refugees from the surface. Many societies turned on one another or fell to disease and war. Nations of hobgoblins and ogres spread, capitalizing on humanity's decline, claiming whole regions. Much that survived the cataclysm was lost in darkness. At length, the worst effects of the disaster waned. Though many elves and mountain dwarves remained reclusive, other cultures tentatively rebuilt. Explorers ventured forth to map the drastically altered continent. Societies re-established bonds of trade that united and diversified them. As the civilizations of Krynn rebuilt and new societies arose, the world learned to live with a jarring truth. The gods were truly gone. Religion on Krynn was altered forever. True clerics, who once worked miracles on behalf of their gods, had vanished. While some people remained devout, many others turned to false religions in search of answers and comfort. Some of these new faiths were founded by charlatans, others by zealots. Some claimed the names of the gods, others dismissed them entirely. In this radically changed world, bereft of immortal insight, truth became subject to conjecture, even among Krynn's most dedicated scholars. But even as Ansalon healed, a new threat grew. The dragon queen Takhisis, known as Tiamat on other worlds, was banished from Krynn over 1,000 years ago. Since then, she had waited patiently, plotting her return. Unbeknownst to the other gods, she planted a piece of the king priest's ruined temple at Naraka, hidden in the volcanic Taman Busuk region. There it grew into a baleful shadow of Istar's greatest edifice. Though this allowed the Dragon Queen to influence the world through a portal opened there. A fragment of the temple's foundation stone was missing, preventing her from fully returning to the world. She called on the evil dragons who served her, long withdrawn from the world, and began once more to plot the conquest of Krynn. Chromatic dragons, acting on their gods' orders, stole the eggs of good metallic dragons. The metallic dragons reluctantly pledge to not interfere in the coming war in exchange for the promised safety of their abducted broods. The Dragon Queen's forces are organized into 5 dragon armies. Within the ranks include a number of humans, goblins, hobgoblins, ogres, and new creatures never before seen on Krynn. All of them seek wealth and a return to the pre-cataclysm glories. Each dragon army is supported by chromatic dragons and their smaller kin, such as dragonels and wyverns. These winged terrors provide a staggering advantage not seen on battlefields for over 1,000 years. The Dragon Queen has elevated her 5 most cunning and devout followers to the rank of Dragon High Lord, each commanding one of her armies. The High Lords all report to Takhisis' champion, Dolket Arikas. But there is no shortage of treachery between and within the dragon armies. The Dragon Queen encourages these conflicts, trusting them to bring the most ruthless and capable leaders to prominence. The Red Dragon Army, the first, largest, and most powerful of Takhisis' forces, is commanded by the fanatical dragon High Lord Verminard. But he has temporarily given control of many of its troops to his acolytes, Dragon High Master Kansaldi Fireeyes, tasking her with spearheading a daring attack on Solamnia. Meanwhile, Verminard's force follows whispers from the Dragon Queen into the southern lands of Abnesinia. Yeah. The ambitious High Lord Kitiara Uthmatar commands the Blue Dragon Army. Second in power among the Dragon Queen's forces, the Blue Dragon Army prepares to join the Red Dragon Army's multi-pronged invasion of Solamnia. The Green Dragon Army recently came under the command of Salah Khan, a Kur leader who united the region's nomads under the Dragon Army rule. The half-ogre Lucian of Takar commands the Black Dragon Army, whose focused force supports the other armies and occupies the lands they conquer, including Nordmar and Goodland. Finally, the small White Dragon Army is led by High Lord Fael'thas, a Sylvanesti elf and black-robed member of the Mages of High Sorcery. This has been the history of Dragonlance in the world of Krynn. Thank you for joining me.